On the morning of July 25, 2025, the United States faced one of the most dangerous ambushes in modern naval history. A fake distress call lured an American task force into the middle of the ocean, where a seemingly ordinary cargo ship concealed a terrifying secret: hundreds of deadly kamikaze drones hidden within its hull. The Navy believed they were responding to a rescue mission. Instead, they sailed straight into the largest unmanned aerial assault ever recorded. Over 500 drones surged into the sky, attacking from 3 separate directions at once. The sea erupted with chaos, smoke rising, fire spreading, artillery pounding, and men fighting for their lives. But America did not fall. Within hours, U.S. retaliation began. Tomahawk cruise missiles screamed across the horizon, flying low and far, weaving through deserts and mountains. They struck with surgical precision, erasing enemy command posts, drone factories, signal relays, and control hubs from the map. It wasn't just a response, it was a message. Play dirty with us, and you will vanish. And this was only the beginning. The counterattack escalated. Every target was hunted down. Coordinates marked, signals tracked, commands executed without hesitation. The United States prepared for fury. In the Arabian Sea, the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Carrier Strike Group closed in on the combat zone, flanked by 2 Virginia-class submarines, their launch tubes armed with Tomahawks. A massive retaliatory strike was imminent. Inside the Eisenhower's command room, silence hung heavy. For 4 hours, screens displayed layers of intelligence, radar sweeps, satellite feeds, and electronic jamming signatures. NSA analysts compared last night's drone assault with earlier attacks traced to Yemen. A pattern emerged: a rare dual ring pulse signal, previously linked to a Houthi-controlled UAV station near Al-Qaeda, only 70 nautical miles from the ambush site. At the same time, KH-12 reconnaissance satellites spotted a suspicious facility just 40 kilometers from the Oman-Yemen border. Its roof was shielded with heat-resistant coating, the kind used to protect large-scale server rooms. Surrounding it, mobile broadcast units, disguised as shipping containers, were deployed in a fan-shaped formation, almost identical to control hubs seen in Syria during the 2022 drone wars. Rear Admiral Anthony Merrick made the call. This is their command. Center. By 7:22 a.m., an encrypted War Council convened. On the line were the commander of the 5th Fleet, the deputy director of the CIA, and a senior CENTCOM admiral. After just 9 minutes of high-speed analysis, authorization came through. Operation Raven Strike. Its mission: destroy every UAV, control facility, every drone factory, every signal station in Yemen using long-range precision weapons. Immediately, the submarines USS Oregon and USS New Hampshire shifted into attack posture. Tomahawk launch systems were armed, locked onto, GPS signals hardened with M-code encryption to resist interference. On the destroyers USS Philippine Sea and USS Gravely, engineers conducted last checks on the Block V Tomahawks, each programmed for penetration strikes, electronic warfare resistance, and self-correcting target acquisition. The fleet assembled, its support assets as well. Aegis systems stood ready to intercept any retaliatory drones. MQ-9 Reapers loitered overhead, prepared to fire Hellfire missiles. Switchblade 600s were staged to eliminate mobile threats like radar trucks and missile carriers. At 7:31 a.m., a 3D target map flickered onto Eisenhower's main display. Marked. In red were the objectives: Al-Qaeda Signal Control Center, Shabwa UAV Production Plant, Hadramaut. Data Processing Facility, multiple disguised relay stations, hidden inside what appeared to be hospitals and power plants. Admiral Merrick's voice cut through the room. They tricked us with the hostage ploy. Now we retaliate. By 7:34 a.m., the President of the United States gave his approval. Every agency, Navy, CIA, NSA, confirmed the intelligence and reviewed rules of engagement. "Systems ready," an officer reported. Merrick replied with cold resolve. "Let the world witness America's wrath." At 7:42 a.m., synchronized across sea and sky, the Eisenhower Strike Group activated its full offensive capacity. The ocean stirred with silent power as the USS Oregon and USS Gravely opened their steel hatches. Dozens of Tomahawks rose like phantoms from the sea and the waves, each one programmed to operate autonomously yet coordinate as part of a larger storm. The counterstrike had begun, dismantling the enemy UAV network in a single strike. The first wave began with 8 Tomahawk cruise missiles launched in near-perfect unison. Flying at treetop level, they skimmed across the scorching desert of eastern Yemen, hugging the contours of dunes and valleys to evade detection. Their targets had been marked by CIA analysts only 3 hours earlier: the Al-Qaeda control station, the Shabwa UAV assembly plant, and the Hadramaut data center, the nerve center of the hostile drone network. Overhead, 4 MQ-9 Reaper drones took to the skies in an X formation. This was not just another sortie. It was a moment that could ignite war, a silent declaration of intent from one superpower to another. Takeoff into history. When the order finally came, 4 B-21s ignited their engines in unison. The roar split the night, shattering the stillness of Alaska's frozen air. Trails of gray-white exhaust snaked across the runway as the colossal bombers accelerated forward, unstoppable in their momentum. As they lifted into the Arctic sky, their black silhouettes merged with the clouds, leaving behind only echoes and smoke. Inside their bays, the massive ordnance penetrators awaited release, silent titans designed to shatter the strongest fortresses, to crack open the hidden layers of nuclear power. The Arctic was no longer quiet. The night had just become the stage for a confrontation that could reshape the fate of the world. These were not merely bombs. They were an unmistakable message, a declaration from Washington that the United States was prepared to respond not just forcefully, but decisively, comprehensively, and without hesitation. From the frozen runways of Alaska to the hardened bunkers of Severomorsk stretched thousands of kilometers of ice, snow, and contested skies. The route was laced with Russian radar outposts, early warning arrays, and patrol interceptors. But the B-21 Raiders, specters born of stealth and electronic dominance, moved as if made of shadow. They glided undetected, slipping past the electronic gaze of every sentinel they crossed. The Arctic night became a crucible of suspense. The closer they came, the heavier the silence grew, as if the fate of the entire world balanced on their wings. Was this just another mission? Or the opening, stroke of a new world war? Into the blizzard. The mission began in a storm. Snow and fog swept across the Alaskan runway as the 4 B-21s rose, their engines thundering into the void before vanishing into silence. Once airborne, the formation quickly rearranged into a staggered sequence, minimizing exposure, maximizing deception. Above the storm, the sky was pitch black, a canvas of shifting clouds that cloaked their silhouettes. Flying low, the Raiders traced the contours of frozen ridges and ice flows, weaving through the night like serpents of steel. Every movement was calculated, every adjustment to altitude and course dictated by the necessity of survival. The B-21s leaned on their most powerful weapons beyond the bombs, stealth and electronic warfare. Jamming pulses spilled into the ether, scattering Russian radar signals like shards of glass. To enemy operators on the Barents coast, the skies became a maze of false echoes and vanishing blips. Nothing could be tracked with certainty. Nothing could be intercepted in time. For 2,000 kilometers, programmed with coordinates of strategic targets. Submarine. Pens holding Boré and Yasin-class nuclear leviathans, deep bunkers stockpiled with munitions, and the fortified command centers directing Russia's Arctic fleet. Each weapon carried a destructive force equivalent to hundreds of tons of TNT. When unleashed, they would burrow through earth and concrete, detonating beneath the surface and collapsing entire complexes into flaming caverns. The squadron pressed on, cloaked in silence, the Arctic storm itself acting as their veil. All external lights remained extinguished, making the bombers invisible even to a vigilant eye. The air inside the cockpits was tense but disciplined. The crews speaking only in clipped phrases, every man and woman aware that they were about to ignite history. The inferno at Severo Morse. The decisive moment arrived as the black outline of Severo Morse loomed beneath a curtain of snow. Suddenly, the darkness erupted with light. From the Russian base, a forest of anti-aircraft fire clawed upward, plumes of tracer rounds, missiles streaking like meteors, the burning breath of S-400s and Panzer S-1 launchers. The sky screamed with the hiss of rockets and the mechanical roar of interceptors. Sirens wailed across the naval base, their echoes colliding with the thunder of guns. Severo Morse had awakened to war, but the B-21s remained phantoms. At high altitude, their stealth and electronic countermeasures masked them as ghosts. Radar screens filled with static and false signatures, making it impossible to pinpoint their flight paths. Russian gunners unleashed blind fury into the sky, but the true enemy remained untouchable, gliding silently above the blizzard. Inside the bomb bays, the GBU-57Bs were released. The night was a graveyard of fire. Equipment lay scattered in ruins, silenced by shockwaves or consumed in flames. Communications flickered and died, and power grids collapsed into darkness. The toll of the attack was staggering. 150 confirmed dead, among them senior officers, who had fought to keep command alive in the heart of the inferno. Across the devastated base, grief and chaos intertwined. Cries for help, the wails of the wounded, and the desperate bark of orders merged into a tragic chorus. Medics scrambled through rubble and fire, dragging the injured toward makeshift aid posts. Defensive teams, battered and bloodied, continued to return fire with whatever remained, trying to resist an invisible enemy that was already gone. Beneath the storm-tossed Arctic sky, the pride of Russia's fleet, the Boré and Yasin-class submarines, guardians of nuclear might, were struck mercilessly. Some were obliterated outright, their steel hulls torn apart with unimaginable loss of life. Others, battered and leaking, were forced to retreat, crippled and useless, their missions forever abandoned. Explosions continued to roll across Severo Morse. Ammunition depots detonated in cascading fireballs. Hangars collapsed into ash and twisted steel. Logistics warehouses burned until their supplies melted into molten pools. And the command center, equipped with the most advanced communication systems in Russia's Arctic defense grid, fell silent, its operators dead or cut off, its systems annihilated. The nerve center of Moscow's northern fleet had been reduced to rubble. Despite a fierce counterattack, the Russian air defense network could not withstand the storm. The sky was alive with chaos. The roar of engines, the shriek of interceptor, rounds, the glare of countermeasures burning bright against the blizzard. For 30 minutes, the battle raged, a maelstrom of fire, screams, collapsing structures, and relentless sirens. And then, as quickly as they had come, the B-21s disappeared into the polar darkness. A bastion of steel was no more. Russia's Northern Fleet Command lay buried beneath ashes, Russia strike back with overwhelming force, risking escalation into full-scale war? Or should it respond more cautiously, preserving stability but signaling weakness? Amid these debates, orders were already given. Strategic Missile Forces